Hello, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I am honored to be here with my friend, lifelong Wytheville native and drummer extraordinaire, Mr. Gage Freeman. How are you, Gage?
Hey, I'm great, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, buddy. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
We're here because I went to see a very important show that you were a part of at the Wohlfahrt Haus Dinner Theater, the Million Dollar Quartet. It's a show that I have been trying most of my adult life to see. When my wife and I were engaged in New York, as we were leaving, and of course I left penniless because I had spent all my money in 2 or 3 days in New York, and the Million Dollar Quartet had just hit Broadway, and then 7 years later I got a chance to see it at Barter Theater, and the lift on my van broke down. So when I saw that it had come to Wohlfahrt Haus, I called my friend George Bailey, and I said, George, I got to see this show. Is there any way you can let me come in and review it? And he was nice enough to have my family and I to the show. And it was the first time I had been professionally to review a show at the Wohlfahrt Haus in 16 years. I'm in the back of the theater, and I look straight through, dead at the center, and I see you tipping your hat to me, and that made my night. Because I said, that's my friend up there.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
No, it made mine too. George kind of called you out in the curtain speech, and I had no idea you were back there. But when George said your name, I knew I had to give you a little wave back there. So
well, it made my night, so appreciate that very much.
You definitely made mine too.
Well, tell me, to you, as a young fellow, but a consummate musician and appreciator of all kinds of music, how important is a show like this to you?
I'll tell you, this show is really cool because, obviously the four kind of massive personalities in these four guys really shine through. But more than that, it's really interesting because it's set at a time in each of their lives where they're all kind of at a low point. There's a lot of uncertainty within them. There's a lot of questioning the future that you can see in all four of the guys. And I think that's really powerful because, you have these four icons of rock and roll that don't have any idea how important they are to the culture and to the world at the time. So that's really important for me, just to look at because I look around and, I'm working with all these incredibly talented people, and they all sort of feel the same way a lot of times, that they're uncertain about their future, and they're uncertain, about if they've got it or not, or if they're good enough. And I think that it says a lot when you see, Elvis come in and he's talking about wanting to get back into Sun Records, or Johnny Cash is feeling, uncertain or down and doesn't want to talk to Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun Records, about moving on to Columbia. So I think that beyond just the music itself, the mentality of those four guys is really special for me. And you are the drummer in the house band for Wohlfahrt Haus, and have been for quite some time. But in this space of being not only the foundation of the house band and an all musical dinner theater, in this particular show you actually have a role, because the drummer in this particular session is actually a very important guy. So you actually had a couple of lines as W.S. Fluke Holland, and is that something that is typical for you?
do you get to act a lot in musicals, or is that a rare thing that you get to?
I would say that that's extremely atypical, actually. This may be, I'm trying to recall if there's ever been another show where I had a character name and lines like this, and I don't believe that I have. So that's really fun and unique for me, because, I typically am just sort of tucked in the background, just playing the music, sort of trying to be heard, not seen in a way, But being a character in this show and being able to interact with the other people on stage and having lines and being more than just an instrument is it's been a really fun thing for me. But I do believe that maybe the first time in the 13 or so years that I've done shows here that's been the case. So it's definitely special for me.
So is acting something that is that anything you've ever dabbled in or had any interest in, or is this just a totally new thing?
I did do, when I was 13 years old, the very first show I did on the stage when I was 13, I was one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. And then a little bit later on, about 8 years ago or so, I was one of the ensemble members in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. But aside from that, I have done very, very little acting, and it's certainly not in my comfort zone. So I'm just trying to have fun with it, really, just not embarrass myself too bad.
Well, you certainly did not. I mean, the reason I'm asking is it seemed like it was very natural for you. I mean, there wasn't but 2 or 3 lines, but the bantering between you and Jared Vaughn was very natural with the main 4 musicians. Now, with this particular show, as you said, you have these four icons, these 4.
Yep.
Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley in particular went on to be they're 4 Southern boys. 4 Southern boys, just like me. The only difference is they have a mountain of talent, and I do not. Otherwise, we're sort of all the same. And the 2 of the most characterized, 2 of the most parodied, 2 of the most imitated figures in American popular culture are Elvis and Johnny Cash. Everybody wants to do a take on Elvis and Johnny Cash. But what impressed me the most about this show is that these guys are not trying to copy anybody. They are stars in their own right with incredible multi-talents, each one of them.
Absolutely.
Eric LaSalle may not have looked or sounded all that much like Elvis, but he had the moves, he had the charisma, he had the slickness of that gave Elvis his star power, that changed him from a regular old Southern boy to Elvis Presley, this entity that will go on and on forever. And they were all really good. Nick Landmesser blew me away as Jerry Lee Lewis, both in, with his personality. If Jerry Lee Lewis wasn't bipolar, I don't know who was. Because one minute he's, practically riding the piano, and the next minute he's preaching on the sins of rock and roll. He was very conflicted with his inner self, but yet he knew that he was this great talent. And everybody's sitting there arguing. The other 3 are sitting there arguing, my song's bigger, no, my song's bigger. Doing the things that we guys do sometimes with the measuring. And Jerry Lee Lewis just kind of sitting there. Okay, everybody's quiet now. Can I hear my record? and then he does Great Balls of Fire and blows everybody away. But he blew me away with the way he did those riffs on that piano that, I thought only Jerry Lee Lewis could do. And then George tells me, oh, the piano is not even his strong point. You should hear his guitar playing. So,
and that's true. I was going to bring that up, and Nick is so incredibly multi-talented. He plays an amazing Jerry Lee Lewis, but he also knocks it out of the park as Buddy Holly or any other role I've seen him do. I mean, he just can transform into any character that he really wants to be on stage. He's incredible, one of the most talented people I've worked with in that aspect. But yeah, just like you were saying, like George said, his guitar playing is really his forte. And believe it or not, Jared, the guy on the bass, he's probably the best piano player, not only on stage, but probably this side of the Mississippi. I put him up against anybody personally. But yeah, there really are some incredibly talented guys on stage with me. I've been blessed to be working with them. Well, I was just going to say, really just because, I mean, you saw the personality thing that Nick can bring to the table too.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if Jared could really match that. That's not really his thing, but he could just play the heck out of about any instrument he touches, though. So, yeah, I mean, he's been really impressed. Well, for me, I've worked with Jared for, I guess, 12 years now or something, and most of the time he's either playing piano or electric bass. So seeing him kind of put his, do the grind and do the work that it takes to be able to play the upright like he has. He's really never done that a whole lot before this show. So he's really come a long way in the last few weeks, and it's really impressed me.
It's almost like that he and Carter Crosby were brothers. I mean, even some of the mannerisms that Carter was doing, Jared was back there. I mean, he was very believable as Jay Perkins, and I just thought everybody was really, really good. But out of everybody, the one that blew me away, the one that just completely knocked my socks off, was Carter as Carl Perkins.
Oh yeah,
my goodness.
Yeah, and it's really cool for us too because me and Nick as Jerry Lee and John Roth as Johnny Cash, and then of course Jared as Jay. We've all worked together for many years now in the theater. But Carter has came in this show as the new guy. It's his first show here at the Wohlfahrt House. His first performance in Wytheville, first time in Wytheville at all, I'm pretty sure. And he has came in and just hit the ground running and has been really, really impressive. He's a really amazing, actor, singer, guitar player, just all around. He's truly incredible. So I definitely hope he sticks around for a while because he really is a lot of fun to work with. Very special talent. He
had that bright red guitar. Red's my favorite color, so if I see red, it always catches my eye. But he had that bright red guitar, and he could jump to his knees and wail on that guitar and duck walk across that stage better than Chuck Berry ever could, and just get in any kind of contortionist position almost, and just wail on that guitar. Not to mention getting up there and singing like he did, and he really made Carl Perkins I think the centerpiece of that show. And I thought that was an amazing thing and it's addressed in the play, but I thought Carl Perkins, was the least famous of the four as time goes on, and he's the one that kind of didn't get a fair shake, because he was laid up in the hospital when he was supposed to go on Perry Como's show to do Blue Suede Shoes. He was laid up in the hospital from a car wreck, and the Colonel talks Elvis into doing it on the Ed Sullivan show, and he erroneously gets the credit for the song when it's actually Carl that had the hit with it first. Right. Yeah, and that is a really interesting thing you bring up there. And you're exactly right. They do put a lot of emphasis on Carl's story in this show.
And I think that's really important too, because at the time that the show is set, it's really kind of in question who was going to be the guy that was going to blow up. And Carl certainly had just as much of a chance as anybody else. So really interesting to see, kind of look through the keyhole of time and see how that went down. But I think Carter does a really incredible job kind of portraying the frustration there that Carl has, trying to figure out why these other guys can get the break, but he can't.
Right. And then you have the ultimate question, which we all have our opinions on. What is rock and roll, or what are the necessary ingredients for the recipe of rock and roll? Is it pop?
Right.
Is it blues? Is it rhythm and blues? Is it country? Is it soul? Is it gospel? And the fact of the matter is, it's all of it. I mean,
correct. Well, I was just going to say, too, that early rockabilly stuff, especially like the early Carl Perkins, the whole idea with that is they would take that old country bluegrass style and just speed it up. And that is sort of created rockabilly. So I think that's really interesting. And then, with each of the four guys in the show, they all sort of have their own lane in rock and roll, their own specific sound, their own brand. And I think it was cool, Sam Phillips' ability to be able to kind of nurture each of their own sounds and lanes individually. But yeah, I think it's a really broad spectrum, and it's sort of, I think it's almost the ultimate genre, because it sort of brings everything in, and it's always evolving. And even today, I think rock and roll still got a long way to go. That kind of is a theme throughout the show for all four of the guys. Even though they all kind of morphed and molded rock and roll and even what it is today, throughout each of their individual lives, it's even mentioned towards the very end of the show when they actually take the iconic picture. Sam Phillips says that, it was a special night. Just wish that each of his boys had a little bit more happiness in their lives.
Right. Right.
So I think that's a really interesting theme to look at with each of these four guys that are, today worship. But at the time going through it, they were miserable a lot of times. So I think that's a really powerful message.
And my daughter was waving, trying to get somebody's attention on the stage. And Nick, as Jerry Lee says, "I see you out there, darling," and made her night. So that was, it was an electrifying show. And that's the reason I said in the review, if the spirits of Elvis Presley and Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis are anywhere in the earth today, they are embodied in those four young guys, because they were incredible.
Totally agree.
So, but I want to talk about you for a second, because you are somebody that I have admired for years.
Thank you so much.
But sure. Who are your drumming heroes, and what other projects do you have, maybe on the side or separate from Wohlfahrt House?
Okay, well, drumming heroes, mine are kind of all over the place. I come from kind of a heavy metal background, but I go like, I'm a really big fan of people like Danny Carey from Tool, but then also going all the way back into like big band era type stuff, Buddy Rich. I love being able to take kind of some of the elements that some of the really hardcore jazz players brought to the table, and then implement that into more modern rock and roll and jazz type stuff. So I really just have been a student of the instrument for any way that I can for such a long time. From working on one of my very first drum teacher ever, Bob Balaji, who is actually playing drums down at the Bar Theater right now. But he is one of the most incredible drummers in the area. I'm sure any of the musicians who know him can attest to that. And he told me, you got to learn how to play one drum before you can play them all. And that really has rung true for me for a long time. So I made it a point to really study, snare drum technique and, just different styles and things like that, to be able to bring that into what's really sort of a brutal, primitive style in this rockabilly kind of 50s drumming, where those drummers were really just all about taking like that fast early jazz stuff and just making it fast. And so it's really interesting trying to match that style. It's really been a challenge for me, really, in a lot of ways, to sort of try to dumb down what I'm doing, but then also make it fast. It's been a really, really unique challenge. There's not a lot going on for me right now. I've kind of taken a step back from a lot of the stuff I'm doing on the side, a lot of the extra credit stuff, taking a step back from that. Doing a lot of just sort of personal growth type stuff right now, and then focusing on this show. I really put a lot into this show. I really wanted to make it as good as I could. I didn't want a lot of distractions for that. And so I've just been doing a lot of my own personal practicing and just growth as a person and as a musician, aside from what I'm doing on stage here. So definitely not something that I even realized going into it, how intricate it would be and some of the ways that these guys are playing. And then, to go from this full throttle rockabilly stuff with Carl Perkins to, just change gears and go right into picking up some brushes and going into the boom chicka Johnny Cash stuff, and then back and forth. Has been a really fun challenge for me too.
Yeah, and Fluke Holland, whom you played, went on to be the drummer in the Johnny Cash Show band for years and years, among being in that incredible session, that once in a lifetime session that never ever happened again. On December 4th, 1956 in Memphis. And thank God somebody brought that out and developed that into what it was, because it's so important that these people are not forgotten. And
agreed.
And Elvis is Elvis, and people will remember Elvis, but I'm talking about the musician, the person that he was, not the persona of Elvis, because there are so many levels that go to that the movie with Austin Butler didn't pick up on last year, as great as that film was. And the Million Dollar Quartet seems to really have stripped it down and given them their dues. But as I said, how magical that must have been for the four of them, the four of those mega talents to come together, and that shows within the chemistry between the four Wohlfahrt House actors, because the crux of the show, as well as talented as they are on their instruments, when they went to the microphone and did that a cappella down by the riverside, that was soul stirring. And then at the end of the play, when the lights go dark before the encore, you hear an actual recording of the real session, and that is almost haunting.
Yeah.
That is almost,
for sure.
That's almost haunting, especially when the four guys come out and you realize how close to the real thing they actually were when they come out and start playing again,
Right.
And looking more like the persona, with Eric in that gold sequins jacket and Jerry Lee Lewis in his red,
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to kind of give a round of applause to the whole entire tech staff, Derek, Board One, has been absolutely incredible with the sound. I mean, the sound in the house and on stage has been the best it's been in so long. The lights have been great. The sets have been great. Thanks to George, thanks to Dwayne. And so our entire tech staff right now is really just going above and beyond. So they shouldn't be left out either. So I just want to thank them for all the hard work that they've done, because I think it's really added a lot to the show.
Thank you for that. And it's an amazing thing, because I came late in the run, but I don't think it mattered, because I think that tickets have been selling pretty good for this show. So.
Yeah, we've got 2 weekends left. We start back up this coming Thursday, and then this weekend, and then next weekend, and that's it. September 10th will be our final show. But I definitely think that we haven't had any problems getting butts in the seats. But if there's anybody that wants to see it, please call, get your reservations now, because they're definitely selling out quick.
Yeah, and this is the show to see. This is one you do not want to miss.
Fully agree.
And with you being a drummer and being a part of the show, what's the most important part of that show to you?
Well, I'll tell you what I think is really cool for me. The show itself is sort of about capturing a random, unplanned moment in time where you have all of these incredibly talented people that, for whatever reason, different reasons, show up in one place at one time to, and end up just having fun. And, it's really kind of exactly the way I feel about this show right now. We have all these incredibly talented people who have showed up here at one time for one reason or another. And here we all are on stage together, being able to do our thing and have fun. So for me, it really feels authentic in that way, that we truly are capturing that vibe of these amazing people all here together at once. And this show is perfect for that. So that's really special for me.
And is the camaraderie between all you guys as cool as it looks on stage? I mean, it looks like everybody just really gels well.
I can promise you that those are my brothers on the stage up there with me. Yes, 100% yes. These guys are family. So it's any kind of relationship or chemistry that you see on stage between any two people, that's real. Yeah, there's no actors on stage in that aspect, for sure.
Well, I would have loved to have met each one of them and thanked them personally for what the evening and the show has meant to me and my family, because my 9-year-old girl's still talking about it. And
sure.
And that's, if you can get a 9-year-old girl to talk about 70-year-old music, then I feel like I'm doing all right as a dad when she talks like that. So
no doubt.
So please share this with all of them. Let them know how much it is meant to me, particularly Nick and Carter in particular. He just melted my face with that guitar. He's
a force of nature. There's no doubt about it. I certainly will. I'll definitely pass the message along, and I'm sure they'll be reading the articles and listening to the podcast or whatever. But they definitely appreciate it. I'm sure of it.
Well, out of all the options I had, you were the one I wanted to talk to, because, as you know, you and I go way back, and we have a long history, and I have admired you for most of your life. So it really means a lot to me that you took the time to talk to me this evening, and I hope you know you're special to me. Thank you so much.
Well, that means more to me than you can imagine. I mean, it's really cool to have somebody in my hometown that can sort of, you make me feel like a rock star, Zach. You always have. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, in my opinion, you are one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.